Hey there, and welcome to Family Revenge. We're so glad you're here. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can stay with us for every twist and turn. Let's jump right in. I walked into the dining room, and it felt like stepping back into an old, familiar place where I never quite fit. The table was set with fine china and crystal glasses that glimmered in the soft light of the chandelier above. My sister Harper was already there, sitting next to her husband Ben. She looked polished, flawless, her confidence radiating off her as she discussed some latest PR venture with him. I could already feel the weight of her presence, always the one who commanded attention. "Hi, Claire," she said without looking up, barely acknowledging me. "Hey," I muttered, setting my coat down. My parents, Richard and Nancy, offered their usual warm but distant smiles from across the room. They were proud of Harper, always proud. I could feel that pride hanging in the air like a cloud. "How's work, honey?" Mom asked, her voice tinged with that same curious, almost vacant interest she always had in my career. I knew she wasn't asking because she cared, but because she thought it was something she was supposed to do. I shrugged. "It's good." "Busy." Dad, who had his nose buried in the newspaper, gave a nod. "That's nice," he mumbled. I could feel the disconnection, the sense that my accomplishments were somehow less important than Harper's. As if running a graphic design firm didn't hold the same weight as running a PR empire. As if designing logos and branding identities wasn't real work. Harper looked up from her conversation with Ben, glancing my way just long enough to offer a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "We're talking about our Thanksgiving plans," she said, as if I'd asked for the update. "You should join us. Ben and I are thinking about taking everyone on a trip to the French Riviera this year." Her voice was full of excitement, like it was the only option worth considering. Mom perked up at that, her eyes brightening. "That sounds wonderful. You've always had the best ideas, Harper." I bit my lip. I wasn't sure what hurt more, the fact that no one even pretended to care what I thought, or the realization that Harper's idea of a family trip was a private yacht, five-star accommodations, and luxury shopping. All things that had nothing to do with me, my life, or my reality. "So," Harper continued, "I've already planned everything. A week-long vacation, yacht rental, private spa treatments, and of course, shopping in Cannes. We'll do the whole thing right. I've researched everything." Ben nodded, his expression unreadable but impressed. "It sounds incredible," he said, clearly on the same page as Harper. "How much are we talking about?" Dad asked, glancing up briefly from his paper. Harper smiled that confident smile again. "Oh, just under $100,000, but it'll be worth every penny. What's money for, if not to enjoy the best, right?" I could feel the weight of the conversation crushing down on me. My heart thudded in my chest. "Well," I interjected, trying to steady my voice, "I was thinking maybe we could also consider a more budget-friendly option, something a little less extravagant." Immediately, Harper's tone shifted. She didn't even pause before dismissing the idea. "A budget trip? Oh, Claire, don't be silly. This is Thanksgiving. We want to make memories, not go to some, what, motel by the beach?" I couldn't help it. The words stung, hitting me with the same dismissive force they always had, as if my work, my life, my whole existence wasn't enough to measure up to Harper's carefully curated world. "I just thought it could be nice to go somewhere we can all enjoy," I said, my voice faltering slightly. Harper gave me one of those looks, the ones that said she already knew everything about me, more than I knew about myself. "Well, you planned something, Claire, that fits with your lifestyle." She almost sneered the word lifestyle, like it was a judgment. I wanted to say something, anything, but I just bit my tongue. Because what could I say that wouldn't make this even worse? My accomplishments felt like nothing in this room, next to Harper's extravagant plans. I stood there, the weight of it all pressing down on me. It had always been this way. Always Harper, always perfect, always in charge. And always me, quiet, unimportant, dismissed. The conversation shifted as dinner was served, but Harper didn't let the food distract her. She was already back to her pitch, her voice full of energy as she dove deeper into the details of the French Riviera plan. "So, I've been looking into it, and I found the perfect place for us to stay," she began, not waiting for anyone to ask. "It's a private villa overlooking the Mediterranean. 7 bedrooms, infinity pool, you name it. We'll have a chef on site, a private yacht for the whole week, and I'm even working on securing spa appointments for all of us. The itinerary's already set." I forced myself to look at my plate, pretending to pick at the food, trying to keep my stomach from nodding. Her words were so polished, so rehearsed, like she was selling a dream, and maybe she was. For her, this was normal. For me, it was a reminder of how out of place I was. Wait, a yacht? Dad asked, his eyebrows shooting up. That's. Yeah, it's incredible. Harper didn't skip a beat. We'll cruise along the coast, stop off at Saint Tropez, maybe spend a day in Monaco. I've already mapped it all out. Trust me, this will be the trip of a lifetime. She looked around the table, waiting for them to react. Mom smiled and nodded, her expression a mix of admiration and awe. That sounds amazing, honey. I could see her approval, felt it like a cold weight on my shoulders. She was proud of Harper, proud of her success in the world where money and luxury were the ultimate goals. What did she care about the work I did? Harper was already filling the space with her plans, and I was just the shadow in the corner. Ben chimed in, leaning forward. How much are we talking about for all of this? Oh, just a little under $100,000, Harper said casually, like it was pocket change. She said it so easily, with such certainty, that it made my chest tighten. But it'll be worth every cent. A vacation like this, you can't put a price on it. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. They all nodded, agreeing, even Dad, who usually seemed to care about things like cost. The way they all reacted made me feel like an outsider, like I didn't belong here at all. Wow, Ben said, eyes wide. That's a lot, but it's probably worth it for something this exclusive. Well, the whole family deserves it, Harper replied. We've all worked hard, and this will be the perfect way to unwind and make memories. Plus, I've got everything taken care of down to the last detail. The more she spoke, the smaller I felt. She had everything figured out, and I had nothing. I thought about the designs I'd worked on, the branding for that startup, the logo that had won me an award, the way I had built my career from the ground up. None of it seemed to matter here. To them, it was all invisible. Mom glanced over at me, her voice soft but almost detached. What about you, Claire? Any thoughts on the vacation? I cleared my throat, struggling to keep my voice steady. I mean, it sounds great, but I was thinking, maybe we could do something a little more affordable. There are plenty of places that don't cost a fortune. My suggestion hung in the air, awkwardly. I knew how it sounded, how out of place it felt among the talk of yachts and five-star hotels. I could already hear the dismissal in my head. Well, that's nice, but Harper started, cutting me off before I could finish. That's cute, Claire, she said, her tone sharp with a hint of sarcasm. But honestly, who wants to go on a budget trip when we could do something like this? We're talking about an experience of a lifetime. Dad nodded in agreement, his face softening. I think Harper's got the right idea. It's not every day we get to do something like this, honey. I wanted to say something, to argue, to make them understand how much effort I'd put into my work, how I'd built something from nothing. But instead, I just sat there, feeling the weight of their disinterest. Harper went on, outlining every last detail. The yacht rental, the spa treatments, the shopping sprees in Cannes. The more she spoke, the more I faded into the background. My suggestions didn't matter. My work didn't matter. It was like I wasn't even in the room. Maybe we could do something more low-key, though, Mom said after a pause, trying to offer an olive branch. A weekend at a nice cabin, perhaps? Somewhere peaceful. But Harper shot her down immediately. That's not what we're doing this year, Mom. If we're going big. It's not even worth considering something less expensive. I felt the heat rise in my chest, my palms getting clammy. I had barely spoken, and yet it was clear what this dinner was really about. Harper and her plans, and the rest of us were just here to agree. The tension in the room settled around me like a weight, thick and suffocating. I swallowed hard. Right, I murmured. I guess it sounds like you've already decided. Harper smiled at me, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was one of those smiles that said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it for you." It made my skin crawl. As the conversation continued to swirl around me, I kept my gaze fixed on my plate. No one asked about the logos I'd designed for huge clients or the branding projects that had earned me awards. No one asked how my business was doing. They didn't care. They just wanted the vacation Harper had already decided on for all of us. The conversation around the table carried on, everyone more and more enthusiastic about Harper's plan. Her eyes sparkled as she described each detail: the luxury cars, the private wine tasting, the custom-designed outfits for our fancy dinners. She was already imagining it all as if it was a done deal, and everyone else, except me, was right there, with her. I picked at my food, not really tasting it, feeling like I was being erased from the conversation. Every time I spoke, it felt like an interruption, a nuisance. They didn't want to hear me, didn't need to. They were all caught up in the fantasy Harper had spun. So, we'll need to finalize the dates, Harper continued, flicking through her phone like she was booking the trip on the spot. It's just a matter of coordinating everyone's schedules. I'm thinking early next summer, right after the kids are out of school. Sounds perfect, Mom said, her voice soft and approving. You've thought of everything, Harper. Harper gave a little laugh, full of that superior, I have it all together vibe. I always do, Mom. Someone has to. She shot me a glance. Right, Claire? I forced a smile, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. The pit in my stomach had been growing with each passing minute, the gap between their world and mine widening further. I looked up just in time to catch Ben's next comment, and it hit me harder than I expected. You sure Claire can afford this, though? Ben said casually, his voice flat. I mean, she's been doing that, design work, right? I don't know if that kind of thing really pulls in the big bucks. His words cut through the air, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like my lungs were caving in. I looked up just in time to see him glance over at me, a slight smirk on his face, like he didn't even realize the punch he'd just thrown. I kept my eyes on my plate, but the weight of his comment pressed down on me. I don't make as much as Harper. I can't afford a trip like that. That was what he meant, wasn't it? And maybe, just maybe, that's how my family saw me. Less than. The underdog. The quiet one. Harper didn't miss a beat. She looked over at me, that same edge to her voice that always made my skin prickle. Well, Claire's lifestyle is a little more artistic, isn't it? She said, a flicker of condescension in her eyes. It's all about passion projects and playing with colors or whatever. No wonder she doesn't have a yacht budget. I swallowed hard, biting my lip to keep from snapping back. Her words burned, sharp, and unnecessary. Artistic lifestyle. Like it was something to be ashamed of. Like it was less than. I wanted to tell her, wanted to scream, that I'd built a design agency from the ground up, that I'd worked with Fortune 500 companies, that my branding had won awards. I wanted to tell them how I didn't rely on handouts like she did, but I didn't. I imagined the clients I'd worked with, the satisfaction of seeing my designs launched in front of millions, the years of hard work it had taken to get here. But none of that mattered in this room. None of it would change how they saw me. I kept quiet like I always did. Harper's eyes flickered over to me again, a smirk playing at the edges of her lips, as if to remind me that my life, my career, would never measure up to hers. Dad cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the tension in the air. Maybe we should focus on the trip, he suggested, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. But it was too late. The words had already landed, and they stuck to me like a cold, wet film. I wasn't just the younger sister in the background anymore. I was the joke, the one they didn't take seriously, the one they dismissed. Harper continued on with her plans, oblivious to the damage her words had done. She talked about the villa again, how everything would be top-notch, how everyone deserved the best. Her voice was almost musical, like she was selling the idea to a room of adoring fans. My parents nodded along, their expressions so eager, so impressed. I barely existed to them, just a faint afterthought between their approval of Harper and her grand plans. And as I sat there, listening to the excitement grow louder, I realized something. They didn't even know who I was. Not really. Not beyond the surface of what they thought I was. Some quiet, artsy person who couldn't possibly understand the real world of success. I was the underdog, and nothing I had done would ever change that. I glanced up again, meeting Harper's gaze. She had that look in her eyes, the one that said, "You'll never be enough for this family." And, for a moment, I believed it. The conversation continued to swirl around the idea of the French Riviera trip. Harper was still detailing every luxury, every extravagant experience. The yacht, the private chefs, the exclusive shopping. Nothing was left to chance. I could feel my frustration building with each passing minute, a tight knot forming in my chest. Then, Harper dropped the price. I've got the final quote. It's a little over $100,000, but honestly, for everything we're getting, it's more than worth it. Over $100,000. The number hung in the air like a weight. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. Maybe we could look into something a little less expensive, I suggested, careful not to let the irritation slip through. I don't know, something more within reason. There are some great places that don't cost a fortune. The table went silent for a moment, all eyes on me. I could feel Harper's gaze sharp on my face, assessing like I was a puzzle piece she had to figure out. After a beat, she smiled, a tight, almost pitying smile. "That's adorable, Claire," she said, her voice laced with mock sweetness. "But I don't think a budget vacation is what the family needs. We deserve something better than that. Don't you think?" I wanted to say something, anything, but I felt my tongue freeze. This was her world, her perfect world. I wasn't part of it, not really. Harper had never cared about what I did, what I achieved. My design career was some kind of hobby to her. She looked me up and down, almost as if she were inspecting me. "Maybe you could plan something more suited to your lifestyle, Claire. Something more artistic. You could find a little cabin in the woods or whatever it is you do." Her words felt like daggers. Artistic. Like it was some kind of punchline. I tried to hide the sting, but it hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I tried to let it go. I tried to tell myself it wasn't worth it, that it didn't matter what she said. But the familiar feelings crept back in, the ones that always came when I was around her, the feeling of not being enough, of never being enough. I thought about the designs I'd spent sleepless nights perfecting, the countless hours spent building my business from the ground up. But in Harper's eyes, that didn't matter. My achievements, my real accomplishments, were invisible to her. And to the rest of my family, "Well, it's not my lifestyle," I said quietly, more to myself than anyone else. But Harper heard me. Of course she did. She tilted her head, a condescending smile playing at her lips. "Right. You're too busy with your little design projects to think about anything real." The words hit me like a slap. A little design project? That's what she thought my career was? Something small? Insignificant? The silence at the table stretched on, heavy and suffocating. I could feel the eyes on me, expectant, like I was supposed to say something to defend myself, to prove her wrong. But I didn't want to. Not anymore. I had tried for so long, so hard to prove myself to them, to show them that I wasn't the quiet, overlooked sister anymore. But all it ever did was make me feel smaller. I turned my gaze to my plate, pretending to focus on the food. It was getting harder to swallow, the words Harper had spoken swirling around in my head. But I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to explode because I knew I would. And I knew it wouldn't matter. They wouldn't get it. Instead, I sat there, quiet, my hands clenched in my lap. I was the quiet one, the one who never got the attention, the one who didn't belong. "Claire?" Mom's voice broke through the tension, soft and uncertain. "I'm sure Harper didn't mean anything by it. She's just excited, that's all." I didn't respond. I couldn't. What was there to say? That I wasn't offended? That I wasn't humiliated by her words? That I didn't feel like the smallest person in the room? A mere afterthought? Harper shot me one more glance, but I didn't look up. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. I was done. Done with trying to prove myself to them, done with letting them make me feel like I didn't matter. The conversation picked up again, but I tuned it out. It was all just noise now. The laughter, the excitement over the trip, it felt distant. I was here, but I wasn't really here. As they continued to plan their perfect vacation, I sat there, invisible once again. The silence hung heavy in the air. I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of the looks, the assumptions, the dismissiveness. I stood up slowly, trying to steady my breath, and pulled my phone from my bag. Everyone's eyes shifted to me as I placed it gently on the table, screen facing up. The low glow of the display cast a faint light over the room. For a moment, I couldn't speak, my throat dry as dust, the tension nearly unbearable. But then I cleared my throat and broke the silence. "I think it's time you all knew exactly what I've been up to these last few years," I said, my voice calm, too calm. I tapped the screen, bringing up my business's financial dashboard. A $45 million valuation stared back at them in cold, undeniable numbers. I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. I let the room process for a moment. The sharp click of silverware on plates had stopped, the sound of it echoing louder than the words we'd exchanged. I could see it in their faces. Confusion first, followed by disbelief. Richard leaned forward, eyes narrowing as if he didn't quite understand what he was seeing. "Claire, what is this?" Mom asked, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't look at her. I focused on the screen, watching their reactions. "It's my business," I explained. "I founded it 5 years ago. A design agency. $45 million in valuation. We've been working with top-tier clients for a while now. Big brands. Fortune 500 companies." I could feel the air shift, the temperature in the room dropping. This wasn't the little hobby they had thought it was. This wasn't some small scale, forgotten thing I did on the side. Richard, who had always dismissed my career as a fleeting pursuit, blinked, his mouth slightly agape. He was speechless, and for a moment I reveled in the silence. I'd never seen him at a loss for words before. But I wasn't done yet. My business was recently acquired for $1.5 billion, I added, letting the words sink in. Harper's hand froze midair, fork hanging at her lips. She slowly put it down, eyes wide, staring at the phone. Wait, Harper finally choked out. Billion? Her voice was almost unrecognizable, a mix of disbelief and something else I couldn't quite place. Yeah, I said, keeping my tone even. I've built this business from the ground up. I don't have a yacht, but I've got something real. Something that lasts. Harper glanced at Ben, who was leaning back in his chair, trying to maintain his composure but clearly rattled. I could see the wheels turning in his mind. He had been one of the first to question if I could afford a trip like the one Harper was planning. Nancy, on the other hand, looked at me as if she was seeing me for the first time. Her eyes softened, and she blinked quickly, perhaps trying to process what she was hearing. I could almost feel her thoughts spinning, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. The numbers on the screen said enough. I looked over at my father, whose gaze was still fixed on the phone. He shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, as if he didn't know how to react. For years, he treated my work like a hobby, something I'd do until I grew up and figured out what I was really going to do with my life. But now there was no denying it. I didn't give them a chance to respond before I dropped the bombshell. I have the kind of money that could have paid for your entire vacation. That yacht you want? I could buy it. Hell, I could buy the whole French Riviera if I felt like it. The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even trying to prove a point, really. I was just done. Done with pretending to be the person they thought I was. Done with being the quiet, overlooked sister. I had built something real, and if they didn't want to acknowledge that, then fine. Harper's expression shifted from disbelief to something more complicated. She tried to recover, but it was clear she was shaken. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it again, like she didn't know what to say. My father's voice broke the silence, weak and hesitant. Claire, are you sure about these numbers? Yeah, I said, glancing over at him. I'm sure. For a moment, no one said anything. The weight of what I had just said seemed to fill the room, pressing down on us all. I wasn't the little sister anymore. I wasn't the one struggling to be noticed. I was the one who had built something from nothing, the one whose work was more than just artistic fluff. The silence stretched on, but I didn't care. I had said what needed to be said. If they couldn't handle it, that wasn't my problem. Mom finally broke the tension. I didn't know, she said quietly, almost apologetically, her voice unsteady. I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. There was nothing more to say. They had seen the numbers. They had heard me. And in that moment, I knew I didn't need their validation anymore, but the shock on Harper's face was still the most satisfying part. The sister who had always been so sure of herself, the one who could dismiss my career with a wave of her hand, was suddenly speechless. And I wasn't sorry, not for a second. The silence in the room felt thick enough to suffocate. Everyone was staring at the phone on the table, their eyes flicking between the glowing screen and me, as if they were trying to process what I'd just said. I didn't break the silence. I didn't need to. Richard was the first to speak, his voice low and almost tentative, as if testing the waters. So you own this business outright? All of it? I nodded slowly. Yep, I started it. I run it. I own it. Ben, who had been unusually quiet until now, leaned forward, trying to piece it all together. But you still make money doing the design work? Or is it more like, investments and stuff? I glanced at him, feeling a cool calm settle over me. Both. I'm the majority shareholder in a tech startup as well. I don't work for a paycheck. I make millions in passive income. Nancy, sitting on the edge of her seat now, shook her head, trying to wrap her mind around the numbers. But how? How did you? I didn't let her finish. I could see her struggling, the disbelief still written all over her face. So, I cut to the heart of it. I'm worth over $2 billion, Mom. I've been on Forbes' list for the past 3 years. The words hung in the air. Their reactions were muted, but their faces betrayed everything. Richard's jaw tightened, his brows furrowing as he tried to make sense of the figures. I could see him calculating, trying to reconcile what I'd just said with the image of me he'd always carried in his head, the image of a quiet, struggling artist who would never make much more than a modest living. Nancy's mouth opened, but she didn't say anything right away. She just blinked, her face flushed. "Oh, Claire," she said finally. I didn't, I didn't know." I didn't respond immediately. She didn't get it. She wasn't apologizing for dismissing me all those years. She was apologizing because she was stunned. I wasn't sure whether she was more impressed by the number on the screen or by the fact that I'd actually pulled it off. "Claire, Harper's voice broke through, and I looked up to find her red-faced and scrambling for control. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I didn't know," she said more forcefully this time, her tone a little defensive. "But hey, that's incredible. Really. You know, if you'd like, you can still join us on the French Riviera trip. We'll cover your expenses. You're welcome to come with us, no problem." I felt the air shift again, thickening. The offer felt like a slap, but I kept my face neutral. I wasn't about to let her turn this around. I shook my head slowly, locking eyes with her. "I don't need your charity, Harper," I said, each word deliberate. "If I wanted to go on a trip, I could plan one myself. I don't need you to buy me a seat at your table." Her face reddened even more, and I could see the gears grinding behind her eyes as she searched for something to say, something that would salvage the situation. But there was nothing left to salvage. "You're right, of course," she muttered, trying to gather herself. That was a bit much. I didn't mean it like that. But the damage was done. I wasn't interested in being part of her world, not anymore. The trip to the French Riviera had never been about the trip itself. It had been about her trying to prove she was the one who controlled everything. I didn't need to be a pawn in her game. For a moment, the room was still again. The excitement that had been bubbling over just minutes before was gone. The conversation had shifted, completely, irrevocably. "I'm not asking you to," I said, breaking the silence. "I'm just saying, maybe it's time you all start seeing me for what I've built, not for who you think I am." I looked around the table, letting my words settle in. Richard finally spoke, his voice tight. "I never realized—" His eyes flicked back to the phone, almost as if he was trying to confirm that what I'd said was real. "I thought you were just, well, doing some graphic design, like a hobby. But this is different." I didn't know. His apology was weak, but I didn't expect anything more. It wasn't the apology I needed. The apology I needed was for the years of dismissiveness, for the times they ignored me, for the way they only saw Harper's world as the one worth living in. I didn't need them to understand everything about me. I just needed them to stop treating me like I didn't matter. Harper looked away, her face a mixture of anger and confusion. She was still processing, still trying to regain her position, her control. But for once, I didn't care about her approval. I stood up slowly, pushing my chair back. "I'm going to take care of a few things. You guys enjoy planning your trip." And just like that, I was done. I wasn't going to beg for their recognition anymore. I didn't need their validation. I had something real now. Something I had built with my own two hands. As I left the table, I could feel the weight of their stares still on my back. But this time, I didn't care. I stood by the table, the weight of the silence pressing down on me. Harper, for the first time in a long time, seemed unsure of herself. Her usual confidence had cracked. She cleared her throat, trying to regain control. "Look, Claire," she started, voice a little too forced. "I didn't mean to come off like that. I'm just trying to help. I mean, we're family, right? We should do something together. I could plan something better for you, something that matches what you've got going on now. You know, we could do some exclusive shopping in Milan, five-star accommodations, maybe a private tour of the best art galleries in Paris. You'd love it. It could be perfect." I felt my pulse quicken with the absurdity of it all. I just stared at her, listening as she laid out the same grand gestures, the same hollow attempts to fix things with expensive gifts and over-the-top promises. The things she thought mattered, but none of that was what I needed. I didn't want her help. I didn't need her to tell me what kind of vacation I should have. I didn't need her to buy my approval with shopping trips or five-star accommodations. I wanted something real, something honest. And this wasn't it. The words came to me slowly, but when I finally spoke, I did so calmly, making sure every syllable cut through the air, unhurried. "I'm going to take the vacation I want," I said. "And it won't be with any of you." Harper opened her mouth, then closed it again, clearly thrown off by my refusal. Her face twisted in frustration, but she didn't argue. She didn't have anything left to say. The offer had been empty from the start. and I wasn't about to play along anymore. The air in the room felt colder now, a tension hanging between us. Richard and Nancy still sat there, their minds reeling from the shock of the numbers, trying to make sense of everything. They were still digesting the truth that I wasn't the person they thought I was, never would be. Harper kept her eyes on me, but now it was more of a challenge than anything. She was desperate, grasping for control again, for some way to make this all go back to how it used to be. But it couldn't. It wouldn't. She sighed, a little too loudly, her voice now tinged with frustration. Look, Claire, I don't get it. You have all this money, all this success, and you're choosing to be alone? You really don't want to spend time with us? I'm just trying to make sure you don't miss out on the experience of a lifetime. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The words she was saying didn't matter anymore. She still saw the world through her own lens, where money could solve everything. Where the French Riviera was the ultimate destination, and if I didn't want it, I was somehow making a mistake. Her voice softened, almost pleading now. I'm just trying to help you make the most of all this good fortune. You've worked so hard, Claire. You deserve to enjoy it. She leaned back, arms crossed, looking at me like I was the one who'd done something wrong. The cold, tight ball of frustration in my chest finally unraveled. You think this is about money? I asked quietly, my voice steady but firm. You think buying me into your world is going to make up for all the years you treated me like I didn't matter? I let the question hang there, lingering, but no one responded. I didn't need their answers. The truth had already been laid bare, and it wasn't about a trip or a gesture. It was about how they'd seen me all along. Harper was quiet now, visibly rattled. She didn't understand. She couldn't, and I was tired of trying to make her. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to stay at the table and keep going around in circles, explaining myself to people who wouldn't ever get it. I was done. I pushed back from the table, standing tall, feeling more grounded than I had in years. I didn't look at any of them as I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair. I've made my decision, I said simply. I'll be planning my own trip, alone. And with that, I turned and walked out of the room. I could hear their voices behind me, muffled and distant, but I didn't look back. I didn't need to. For the first time in my life, I was finally stepping into who I was, who I had become. Not the sister they'd dismissed, not the quiet one who never measured up. I was done waiting for their approval. I was done trying to fit into their world. I was ready to live my own. The next day, I sat at my desk, sorting through a stack of travel brochures, a sense of calm washing over me. I was planning my own vacation. No family, no expectations, just me and whatever luxury I could find on my own terms. The Caribbean seemed like the perfect escape. The best resorts, private villas with infinity pools, personal chefs who would prepare everything I wanted. No one telling me what I could or couldn't do. I started arranging private transportation from the airport, a few spa appointments, and dinners at places I'd read about for years. I was in control now. I was just about to hit confirm on my booking when my phone rang, breaking the quiet. I looked at the screen. Harper. I hesitated for a second. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear what she had to say, but I hit accept anyway. Claire. Harper's voice came through, softer than I expected. I just wanted to apologize. For everything. For what I said last night, I was wrong to assume you couldn't afford to join us. I was being an idiot. I let out a slow breath, leaning back in my chair. I wasn't ready to give her all the space she wanted. This apology didn't change everything, but it was a start. Yeah, you were, I said, my voice steady. But I appreciate you admitting it. There was a brief pause on the other end. I could hear her shifting, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't realize how I was treating you. I thought if I helped, you'd be part of it. I thought I was offering you something good. But I get it now. I see it. I really do. Good, I said, finally feeling the slightest shift inside me. But it's not about money, Harper. It never was. You can't buy me with trips or gifts. Not anymore. There was another pause before Harper spoke again, her tone softer, more hesitant. I get that. I do, and I want to do better. I really do. If you'll let me, I'd like to try to make things right. If not for me, then for the family. I couldn't help but feel a flicker of something, maybe hope, maybe curiosity. Well, I said, leaning forward, if you want to make it right, there's something you can do. Harper was quiet for a moment, waiting for me to continue. There's a nonprofit in town that supports young women trying to break into creative careers. They focus on the arts, design, music, writing. They're always looking for volunteers, mentors. I think that's a good place to start. If you really want to show you're capable of empathy and growth, you could give your time there. That would make a difference. Harper was silent for a few moments, the weight of my suggestion settling in. Volunteering? She asked slowly, unsure. I don't know. I mean, that's not really my thing. But I see your point. If it's what you think I should do, I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. It's not about what I think you should do. It's about showing that you're willing to change. It's about stepping outside your world for once and seeing something different. It'll take work, real work. It's not a PR stunt. I get that, she said, the words coming more easily now, almost resigned. Okay, I'll do it. I'll start volunteering. I could hear the hesitation in her voice, but she said it, and that was the first step. For the first time, I believed she might actually try to make a change. Good, I said, smiling to myself. Start small and take it seriously. These women are depending on people who genuinely care about their futures, not just about making a good impression. I will, Harper replied, her voice softer now. Thank you for giving me a chance to do this. I sat back in my chair, the weight of the conversation lifting a little. You're welcome. Just remember, actions speak louder than words. And this is just the beginning. I could almost hear her exhale, the tension starting to leave her voice. I won't forget. I'll start today. We said our goodbyes, and I hung up, feeling a strange mixture of relief and satisfaction. I wasn't sure how it would play out, but it felt like something was shifting. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for change. As I sat there looking at my vacation plans, I couldn't help but feel a smile tug at the corners of my mouth. For the first time in a long time, it felt like I was in control, not just of my vacation, but of the path ahead. And for once, I was choosing a future that was mine. A few weeks passed, and the tension with my family slowly started to ease, though it was still there, just beneath the surface. Harper kept her word, volunteering at the nonprofit. She even sent me updates, pictures of the events she'd attended and the girls she was working with. The messages were brief, but there was a shift in her tone. No more sarcasm, no more superiority. There was a sense of earnestness behind her words now, something that hadn't been there before. She was trying. I had to admit, it felt strange to see her like this, genuine, at least on the surface. But part of me still wondered how long it would last. Would she really change? Or was this just another phase she'd move through, like everything else in her life? Only time would tell. As for me, I'd throw myself fully into my own life, building on everything I'd worked for over the past few years. I'd finally embrace the woman I'd become, not just the person my family thought I should be, but the person I'd fought so hard to be. My business was thriving, my relationships were stronger, and I was surrounded by people who saw me. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't looking for approval, and I sure as hell wasn't playing by anyone else's rules. One afternoon, I sat in my office overlooking the city, a cup of coffee in hand, reflecting on how much had changed. The success, the money, it had always been there. But I'd learned to see it for what it really was, a byproduct of my work, not the end goal. The true riches in my life now were the friendships I had, the growth I'd experienced, and the confidence in knowing who I truly was. I didn't need a private yacht or a five-star hotel to feel valuable anymore. I still had moments of doubt, moments when I wondered if I'd made the right decision to step away from my family's expectations. But those moments were fewer and farther between. I had learned that my worth wasn't tied to their approval, and that feeling, that was the real victory. I had built my own path, one that was mine and mine alone. I took a deep breath, feeling more grounded than I ever had. I picked up my phone and shot a quick message to Harper. How's the volunteer work going? A few minutes later, she replied, It's going well. Met some amazing girls today. They remind me of how lucky I am. Thanks for suggesting this. Her words weren't much, but there was something different about them. A softness, a humility I hadn't seen before. And for the first time, I didn't feel the need to overthink it. I just felt content. Whatever happens between us in the future, whatever changes, I knew I had done what was best for me. My phone buzzed again. It was a message from Ben. Are you still planning on going away for the holidays? I smiled, responding, Yes, but it won't be to the French Riviera. I hit send, then leaned back in my chair. This time, I didn't feel the need to explain myself further. As the sun set outside, casting a warm glow across the room, I realized that I had everything I needed right here. I had found my voice. I had found my place. And for the first time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder to see if my family was watching. I was standing on my own, exactly where I was meant to be.